In 2020, the United States will be holding its next presidential election in which they will decide who will be the next president of the United States. I have already colored in this map. This is going to be a general analysis of anyone but Joe Biden running for president. Other than Joe Biden, we have people such as Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg is scoring way lower in the polls, but I will still consider him a frontrunner for the race as of right now. Other than that, I'm going to think about this as kind of just a generic progressive Democrat. Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, and Elizabeth Warren actually have very similar policies to each other, and running them against the President of the United States, Donald Trump, will be a very similar campaign all across the board. Now, states that I have listed in red are states that will be voting for Donald Trump in 2020. For states that are colored in blue, those are going to be the ones that are definitely going to be voting for the Democratic nominee, no matter who it is. And states colored in gray are the states that I will be considering that are going to be somewhat battlegrounds. Some of these are not considered battlegrounds, especially states like Arizona and Colorado. However, those states have been leaning very conservative or liberal. And Colorado actually has voted for a Republican in the past 15 years. So that is why I'm considering them gray. But obviously, that's going to change. So in any case, I'm going to go ahead and see who I believe that the Democrats could actually win in 2020. Las Vegas, we're going to start from the West Coast to the East Coast. Las Vegas is very dominant over Nevada, and Nevada has actually voted for a Republican again in the past 15 years. However, the past couple presidential cycles, they have been leaning way more blue than anything else. In Las Vegas, being a metropolitan area, being kind of just the largest population center in Nevada, they are very dominant over that. And whoever wins Las Vegas, or as long as the outer counties outnumber the inner Las Vegas county, it's obviously going to be blue. So we're going to go ahead and color in Nevada as blue for that. Colorado is basically not really the same thing. They're way more populous. However, their policies do lean more liberal. And Denver, Colorado Springs, Boulder, they're very Democratic leaning. And so I'm going to go ahead and color Colorado in as blue. Right now, we are 180 electoral votes for the Republican Party to 205 for the Democratic Party. Now, Arizona is a very peculiar state. They actually almost voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and they did vote for a Democratic senator in 2018 for their Senate race. However, this does not mean that they will be flipping in 2020. I think it may be a close race, but I still believe that Arizona will stick with the Republican Party as of right now, and there is no telltale signs that they will be flipping, at least right now. Iowa is a very critical swing state. With 6 electoral votes, it can be one of the ones that can decide a presidential election. However, with recent presidential elections, they have actually been leaning way more conservative than a lot of other states. So I'm going to go ahead and color them red. And Ohio is kind of the same way. Ohio basically is the deciding state in a lot of presidential elections. Republicans have never won a presidential election without Ohio following suit. So in any case, it is very impossible for Donald Trump, especially with the current political climate, to win the presidential election without Ohio. He would have to win a lot of other states and even flip critical Democratic states to actually have this done. So Ohio would definitely have to go into the presidential column to actually pursue a win. North Carolina is basically the same thing as Ohio. They are very conservative, and they've been leaning way more conservative in past presidential elections. They voted against President Obama in 2012 for Mitt Romney, but as we all know, Mitt Romney actually did lose. So North Carolina would be going into the presidential column as of then. Now, Virginia is another peculiar state. They are actually very critical. They were actually very critical to the presidential nominations in past elections. Virginia was actually a hardcore Republican state from about 1964 to all the way to 2008. And ever since 2008, Virginia has actually been voting for the Democratic nominee. And these are very much dictated by a lot of the metropolitan areas, especially in the north, in Arlington, and around that Washington, D.C. area. So, but unfortunately, I do not think that the president could actually win the state of Virginia, so that would be going back to the Democrats again. Depending on the campaign that is being run, whoever the nominee is, it is actually very possible that Virginia could actually flip. The past couple of presidential cycles have been within 100 to 300,000 votes of each other, so it is not a far-fetched idea, but Virginia is still safe blue in my own opinion. In the north, basically, if you actually look right here, Maine and Nebraska are actually the only states in the union that actually split their electoral votes by the number of delegates. That they actually have an at-large district, and then they also have the rest of their electoral votes that could actually be won by their congressional districts. In the case of New Hampshire, I do believe that New Hampshire is leaning way more conservative than any other candidate. I do believe that New Hampshire is leaning way more conservative than a lot of other people say. And I do believe that New Hampshire, in the case of a progressive Democrat, I do believe that it would be very unpopular for a lot of New Hampshireans to actually vote for a Democrat whenever their own interests are not being taken at hand. So I do believe that the Republicans could actually get away with New Hampshire in that case. Now, it comes back to the Rust Belt, to the Midwest. The Rust Belt is a very manufacturer-based industry. They have a lot of industries, and they lost a lot of jobs during the recession back in 2008. And that played crucial because they voted for Democrats ever since about 1988. Ever since, no, not 1988, but actually 1992, since they've been voting for Bill Clinton. Ever since then, it's been what was identified as the blue wall. And the blue wall was very critical in 2016 because it broke. All three of these states flipped for the Republican nominee, Donald Trump. And this is a very crucial region for Donald Trump to win. He needs to win at least two of these states to become the president of the United States again. So I'm actually going to go ahead and start over here with Minnesota. Minnesota almost voted for Donald Trump. He almost won it. And it would have been the first time that Minnesota actually voted for a Republican since 1972 for Richard Nixon. But in any case, unless the Democrat is so bad and just so against the economy and just not really concentrating on what a lot of manufacturing jobs want, I do believe that Minnesota has a chance of voting for the president for the first time in so many years. But at the same time, I do believe that Minneapolis and St. Paul could actually dictate who will win in the election. And so I do believe that Minnesota will be voting for the Democrat again in that case. And in any case, I do believe that Wisconsin could actually just stay with the president. I do believe Wisconsin is way more conservative than Pennsylvania and Michigan. However, coming back to Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania is almost dictated by Philadelphia. Philadelphia has almost 3 million people in that area. And Philadelphia did not vote as much for Hillary Clinton as it did for Obama. So if that becomes the case again, that a very unpopular candidate, just not even unpopular, just kind of not energetic, the only way you're going to be able to actually win Pennsylvania now is if you actually do turn out that black vote. The same case is in North Carolina. However, that did not happen in 2012 or 2016. So Pennsylvania would actually have to be the same thing. There would have to be at least a 80%, 90% victory margin in Philadelphia to actually have the Democrats flip Pennsylvania. And until then, I do believe that the president will get away with the state of Pennsylvania, which brings it down to Michigan and Florida. Now, Michigan is actually a very liberal state. They are still very manufacturer based, and a lot of those southern counties actually did vote for the president and flip from Obama in 2016. But I do not believe they will actually be able to stay with the president for long unless there is such an unpopular progressive candidate that could actually prove that the president is not a good candidate for Michigan. And that all brings it down to Florida. Florida will probably the deciding factor in this election, just as it was in 2000. Florida obviously loves being the pinprick of every presidential election, especially Ohio as well, which was the case in 2004. But Florida is pretty conservative. They are very conservative. They did vote for 2 Republican senators in the past couple of years, and they have been leaning very conservative. They also have a Republican governor. Republicans have been actually putting themselves in positions that actually benefit themselves in Florida. So Florida definitely would be voting for the president of the United States in 2020, and that is going to be my analysis on the 2020 election race. 294 electoral votes to 244. That is going to be something that I believe will happen in 2020. This is not my official election map. This is just a generic Democratic progressive running in the presidential election in 2020. I can do specific people in 2020. That's kind of why I had a little bit of a hard time playing in this one on this video. So guys, if you guys like this, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will see you guys in the next video.